was a piece of advice that somebody else gave to me, that come away from those kinds of opportunities with a few more connections. So no, for me it's just really going in, being prepared to speak to somebody. What is the worst? The cliche. What's the worst that can happen? Somebody might ignore you, but in reality, that's never happened to me.
Welcome to the Merseyway Innovation Centre podcast, where we explore the power of unexpected encounters and spontaneous connections. Join us on our journey as we delve into the world of casual collisions, those chance encounters and unexpected conversations that have the power to redirect our paths and shape our destinies. Get ready to explore how a single moment can change everything.
Okay, hello and welcome to Casual Collisions, another episode of Casual Collisions here at Merseyway Innovation Centre. And today I'm joined by James White. Hello, James.
Good morning, good to be here.
Thank you very much for coming. Can you tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, my name's James White. I am 42 years old.
Oh, wow. We're getting to the detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuff people need to know. So I'm fairly local to Stockport. I live in Heaton Moor. Lived in Heaton Moor for 6-7 years. I grew up in Altrincham, so again, not a million miles from Stockport. And I'm the chief executive of Mentell, a men's mental health charity.
Brilliant. And Mentell are based here, and we are in the centre today. So it's early morning here. I know you're probably not watching this early morning, but it's quiet at the moment. I'll never say that word. I've been told not to say that word because as soon as you say the word quiet, it then goes mental. So we'll see what happens behind us as the morning goes on. James, this podcast is called Casual Collisions. Our centre is set up to manufacture, if you like, those casual collisions in a natural and relaxed way. We want people to meet each other because we know that relationships are key to business, key to life, key to business in particular. So we know that those kind of unplanned ones are the ones that often get you into places where you didn't realise you were going and actually can bring about really fantastic change in your personal life and in business. When has that happened for you? When can you sort of testify to that?
Yeah, it's a really good one, an interesting question to kind of think about. So like full disclosure, in a few weeks' time, my wife and the family, we're going to Thailand on holiday, which is obviously hugely exciting. But Thailand's a pretty significant country in my life and my story. And so I suppose the first kind of casual connection I want to talk about is the one that kind of led me to my first visit to Thailand, which was 20 years ago. And it actually happened, this sort of casual collision connection at Glastonbury, just in front of the pyramid stage. I wasn't on it. I was watching the Kaiser Chiefs at the time, and it was 20 years ago. So the year was 2005, and basically an old friend of mine from university who I hadn't seen for 18 months. It would have been at that point. He was also in the crowd, unbeknownst to me. We kind of connected, bumped into each other, and my old friend was with another pal who happened to have links to a school in Thailand. And basically that just triggered the most amazing life-changing experience for me because I was a bit lost at that time in my life, but I had this kind of inkling that maybe going to do a stint teaching would be of interest. So basically that conversation with that stranger, brought together only by a love of the Kaiser Chiefs, led to introductions to teachers out in southern Thailand. And even more than that, it wasn't just me, but also my girlfriend, who's now my wife. We'd been together for a matter of weeks at that point when Glastonbury happened. We'd actually met, my wife and I, on a teaching course, just a weekend thing. So I suppose that's another casual collision that really had an impact on me. But in essence, just a couple of months on from Glastonbury and that conversation and those introductions, I was there in front of 30 eager, expectant Thai teenagers, trying to convince them of the importance of learning English. Although in
Really
fairness,
happened that quick?
It was that quick. It was pretty crazy. I guess, when I was 20 years younger than I am now, you maybe don't think about the ramifications of stuff, and didn't have perhaps some of the family ties that I have now, which obviously are exciting but are limiting in some ways. So it meant that myself and my girlfriend, now wife, were able to up sticks, head out to a lovely little town called Trang in southern Thailand, which isn't right on the coast. It hasn't featured, as far as I know, in the latest series of White Lotus, but it has its own charms, and really helped me to stand on my own 2 feet, to throw myself into properly unfamiliar territory. And it was just the most wonderful experience, kind of 6 months of teaching, and then another 3 months of travelling around Southeast Asia, sort of Vietnam and Cambodia after that, which kind of really set me up. And so it's going to be really exciting to go back there, not to Trang, but to somewhere a bit more White Lotus-y in a few weeks' time.
You're going to have a bit of luxury, are you?
Well, I mean, relatively speaking. Maybe we've got the new edition of The Lonely Planet, and so they price their accommodation with dollar signs on a kind of 1 to 3 scale. Mm-hmm. It'll still be mainly ones, maybe with a $2 on occasion. But no, I think it's important the kids understand the backpacker life a little bit at least.
Yeah. So that must have really shaped you. I mean, I know I went travelling when I was younger, and it really does. There's times in your life, in your older life, where you go, what if I hadn't have been exposed to all that when I was younger, I don't think I would have learnt the lessons I did, and I don't think I would have dealt with this in the same way. Yeah. You see that in your life, do you? Yeah,
absolutely. I think, whilst the cliche is true that Thai people are really friendly and warm and welcoming, still it was a country where, I'd never been before, very different in a lot of ways to what I'd been used to, like I say, growing up in South Manchester. So, we were placed in some pretty unfamiliar circumstances, and, just having to work out a lot of things for myself. So I think, although I'd lived independently, I guess, at university and what have you prior to that, it was the first time where it was really if you encounter an issue or a problem, I remember having to work out how to get my washing done, because it doesn't operate in the same way as it does here with laundrettes. So I remember just quite early on, and also for people that aren't watching this on video or can't kind of gauge my size, I'm 6'2", and I kind of went out there with a backpack mainly full of t-shirts and shorts, but as a teacher in a school, I needed to get hold of a wardrobe. So, I was having to find local tailors in this not touristy town to get them to get tailors to knock me up a couple of pairs of functional trousers that I could use to go and do my job in. So, all those kinds of things that, look back, and they were funny at the time and they're funny now. But that, instilling in me that ability to kind of solve problems, and as I say, to kind of get out of my comfort zone, all those things definitely have stayed with me in the 20 years since. Yeah,
I think there's a reason why that turnaround of a few weeks happened is probably because you sound like, at that age, and you are now, from what I know of you, quite a laid-back person in that you probably made that decision and were like, yeah, come on, let's go, let's do it. Not worrying about, hold on, will I have the trousers? Hold on, will I have that? Which might have held some people back. But I think the learning curve of actually, oh no, I've not planned this properly. Mm-hmm. Oh no, now I need to go out and get some trousers. Mm-hmm. Those lessons are really good for people, because I'm the same. This is why I'm saying this, because I've made those decisions where I've gone and done things and then gone, oh no, what have I done? Yeah. And then having to bail yourself out, and then think, actually, do I want to have to bail myself out every time? Yeah. That's part of being an adult and growing up, isn't it? And learning stuff like that. Yeah, it sounds really exciting. What an exciting trip. An exciting trip coming up for the kids. Oh,
I hope so, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's been beautiful weather in Stockport the past few days, but yeah, unquestionably, there's quite a large part of my thinking, going a few weeks into the future, where that sea will be lapping at my toes, and eating some delicious food. So it should be really good. I'm
going to make a noise with your microphone because it seems to be dropping down. You mentioned before you're a little bit taller, and I didn't gauge that very well. There we go. Let me tighten that up. So, so. You mentioned as well, I was talking to you before about your casual collisions, and you mentioned something about how you joined Mentell, being a similar story.
Yeah, so it's just like a little bit of background to me and what's gone on in the past couple of years. So I had a pretty significant health event at the start of 2023. So again, like viewers will kind of look at me and go, "Oh, this couldn't have happened to this guy," but unfortunately, I had a heart attack. In sort of mid-January of, as I say, at the start of 2023. It was unexpected, although my kind of family history isn't great in that regard. I knew that, and so I'd kind of always taken care of myself. I like running, I eat well. I barely drink at all now, but I didn't drink very much then either. So I really wasn't the sort of candidate that you'd look at and go, he's going to have something like that happen to him, but it did, and so that. Has had, as I'm sure viewers and listeners would expect, a pretty deep impact on me at the time, subsequently, although in the kind of 12 months after that, I spent quite a lot of time trying to persuade myself and anyone who would listen that actually I was fine, and I had to have an operation, had something called a stent put into one of the arteries in my heart to basically improve the blood flow. So physically, I was sent on my merry way. I have to take medication to try and minimise the chance of it happening again. So I had this kind of physical release, discharge, and I, was, as I say, trying to reassure everyone that would listen that everything was fine. But, if I was being totally honest with myself, things weren't okay. I was kind of struggling to really accept what had happened to me, and also deal with the fact that for me, and I know this isn't the experience for everybody, I have learned all heart attacks are unique. It wasn't the most painful thing that's ever happened. So I found myself in a situation where, any run-of-the-mill symptom that, again, as you get older, things start to ache and whatever. Every time that was happening to me, and not just in my heart or my chest, I was kind of immediately assuming the worst was going to happen to me. So mentally, I was going on a kind of downward spiral with kind of health anxiety. So tried to seek help, spoke to my GP, and was kind of pointed in the direction of kind of self-referring to some NHS services, which, it wasn't the most straightforward thing, but I managed to get a little bit of CBT, so cognitive behavioural therapy, I think that stands for, but only for 6 weeks, and it helped a bit, but then it was stopped because my need wasn't deemed to be that acute. And so basically at the start of 2024, I really was in a terrible place. But the interesting kind of casual connection was that I do remember on New Year's Day 2024 going to watch Stockport County play football. It was a very last minute decision to go, one I actually regretted pretty soon. I remember booking the tickets on New Year's Day lunchtime, and it was a day like today, blue sky, lovely, and then as often the way in January, the weather turned. So for those of you that know Stockport County, one of the ends is called the railway end. That's where I got tickets. Doesn't have a roof. And so as the hailstones and what have you kind of started not long into the game, I really did kind of regret my decision. But it just so happened that it was Mentell, the charity I'm now chief executive of, were the chosen charity that day. So I have vivid memories of a man in a woolly hat wandering around the pitch at half time, shaking a bucket. A man who I now know to be Dave Thompson, who's one of our great ambassadors and does a lot of great stuff for us. But something about Mentell's presence that day kind of lodged in my mind. I went on to have quite a rocky few months. I didn't. I ended up being signed off work is the truth of it, and it kind of did lead me to make a decision to step away from the job that I had with a national charity. But one door closes, and it just so happened that in the sort of autumn time of last year, when I was feeling better in myself, the Mentell chief executive role came about. I think I might have skimmed over the job ad had I not, something in my mind sort of flicked back to New Year's Day, and it was at that point that I started to find out a lot more about the amazing work that Mentell does. we'll perhaps come to talk about it in a second, but I have subsequently benefited myself from the services that Mentell offers. So whilst there's a bit of me that kind of wishes I'd got involved and gone to Mentell sooner, I do just think that the stars have kind of aligned, that there was something about that Stockport County match and that decision to go there, something about Dave's woolly hat, something about the kind of the blue T-shirts, I don't know, and something about the job that I now do coming available at just the moment where I was looking for my next move, was just a really happy sort of casual collision connection.
Yeah. Did you speak to Dave that day?
I didn't. No, I was there with my son, so who had been very happy to be told we were going, and as I say, was less happy
when the hail came
because
down.
Obviously, I mean, we've talked about my wardrobe choices earlier. I'm pretty sure I won't have packed anything like a suitable waterproof, etc. So,
and there was no tailors around in
Edgeley.
No
tailors on the mean streets of Edgeley to sort me out on New Year's Day. They were all probably recovering from a good New Year's Day. So no, I didn't, but I do. So I do vividly remember, and it wasn't just Dave. There were others there, and it was funny. This year, so New Year's Day 2025. I went along this time as chief exec to participate in that match day, and it's a great thing. Stockport County are really good supporters of the charity. So
oh, brilliant! On both of those casual collisions you had there were really you left the house is the main thing. Mm-hmm. And you don't strike me as the kind of person that's introverted. You're quite an extrovert in your in the way that you come across. I mean, I don't know whether you get your energy from people or whether you actually...
You know what? It's an interesting one. So, I mean, I've been through and done those kind of Myers-Briggs that some people have done, and actually I do come across as an introvert. I'm not sure. I think sometimes those things, there's a spectrum, isn't there? So, I think I'm probably one of those people that maybe actually I don't instinctively like throwing myself out of the house, but I do get energy from it when I do it, and it's one of the things actually that really appealed to me with the job with Mentell, and the fact that we're based here in the Innovation Centre, was the requirement for the chief executive to be here. Obviously there's times when I'm not, when I'm at meetings and what have you, but broadly speaking, to be physically present here and to be meeting new people. And I was kind of honest with myself, and having had and this predated the pandemic, my jobs with national charities, I'd spent a lot of time working on my own at home, and maybe that hadn't actually been the greatest thing for me. So although it's one of those where I maybe have to sort of chivvy myself along a little bit, I do feel the benefits when I do it, and I know it is good for me. So yeah, it's an interesting observation.
What other tactics do you use when you because obviously when we're talking to introverts, that we do focus on the basic of just getting out the house. Like you say, you have to chivvy yourself on, and I think everybody does, because everybody would rather stay in bed. But what's your next? Do you have any tactics to sort of make those casual collisions happen? So, like in here, for instance, it's a bit easier because we've designed it in a way that you bump into each other all the time. But do you put things in place in your life so that you get? Were you one of those guys that speaks to people in the lift if you're on your own, or in a shop? Would you speak to the shopkeeper and all that? Are you naturally like that?
Oh, that's really interesting. Probably not in terms of like just striking up a conversation in somewhere like that, but certainly like if I'm in a professional setting, and this is something I've got better at like over the years. Like I will, before I kind of go in somewhere, I will kind of say, right, I'm going to go and introduce myself to, depending on the scale of the event, it might be 2 people or 5 people. Like that was a piece of advice that, somebody else gave to me, that, come away from those kinds of opportunities with a few more connections. And I think, these days, certainly like professionally, with tools like LinkedIn, it is very easy. Once you've made that intro, you don't need to find out everybody's life story on that first meeting. You can follow up quite easily with a connection on some of those social media platforms that are out there. So no, for me, it's just really going in, being prepared to speak to somebody. What is the worst? The cliche. What's the worst that can happen? Somebody might ignore you, but in reality, that's never happened to me. So, but I agree that here, I think it is great that you can be stood around by the coffee machine, and the opportunity does just present itself. So, I think that it's great when you're in environments that it affords the chance to connect. But even when you're not, certainly I think professionally I am now somebody that will go out to kind of just open with an open question, which again is something that, without giving away all the trade secrets of Mentell, not that there are any, but when the kind of talking groups that we run are in operation, open questions are obviously good ones because they give the person you're speaking with the opportunity to share should they wish.
Do you have a list of them in your head?
Oh, I don't know if I'm that. Maybe I should.
That contrived.
I think I would. Like I do like spontaneity. So I think just how's your morning going is kind of an obvious one. But beyond that, I think I try and be an active listener and understand what people are saying to me rather than being too robotic. So
and then you react to what they say rather than...
Exactly that, yeah. So try, open with an open question, but beyond that, it's kind of see where things go, see where the your commonalities are, or rather than having a list of like 3 or 4 that I would necessarily work through.
So you mentioned there that you have to go to some events and connect with people. That's probably one aspect of your job. What other things are in your sort of day-to-day, week-to-week stuff that you do in your job role? Yeah,
so Mentell, it's a great charity. So we're here for any man over the age of 18, and we're, as you'll gather, a mental health charity. So the services that we run are basically weekly groups that we call circles, where men can come. They can share or they can listen, and they can share about whatever's going on in their life in a kind of non-judgmental, confidential, free in terms of there's no financial cost environment. So it's an amazing thing that we offer. And my job as chief exec, there's various strands. Obviously, as a small but ambitious charity, getting the income in is a really important part of what I do, and trying to ensure that the conditions are right so we're an appealing prospect to potential funders, because it's a difficult time at the moment for all charities, but also looking for opportunities to grow. So I suppose one of the things that's most pressing on my to-do list at the moment, in just a few weeks' time we'll be opening our 9th in-person circle, and that's going to be in the really beautiful Gorton Monastery. So,
it's lovely there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic space. We're really excited about that. It will be our first circle, within Manchester. As I say, we were founded in Stockport, and we run offerings in Hyde and Wilmslow, etc. But to start to expand into Greater Manchester in a more meaningful way is exciting. So that getting that one up and running is something that me and the team are busy with. So, and also as I say, as we're a fairly small charity, there at the moment in terms of like the staff team, I do have to get involved in lots of different areas, which is interesting and exciting. But I think income and also thinking strategically about the ways that we can expand other things that are occupy kind of the majority of my time.
Brilliant. It's really good to hear that stuff that you're doing and the hope that's coming up, and also you put in there the challenge of the income and stuff that you have day to day, I suppose, or week to week.
Yeah.
It's really good to hear that, and I'm sure viewers, listeners will appreciate that. It's nice as well to get your voice out there. We're on your side. We're cheering you on. We love having you here, and I just want to say to anybody that meets you or sees you at an event to come over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, save me
ask an open question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe ask how your holiday was. But yeah, just get chatting to James, and the more people you meet, like we say here, casual collisions and connections is what it's all about. Yeah. The more people you meet, the better. So thank you so much for coming down today. It's been great. And nice to have a brew with you. And thanks.
All the best. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope this discussion has ignited a spark within you, an urge to finally have the conversation that you've been putting off, or perhaps the courage to reach out to someone new and explore where that connection may lead. Remember, it's through these connections that collaboration thrives. So don't hesitate to take the first step towards connection. Together, we can forge new paths and unlock endless possibilities.